And I'll set this up to go live out on Facebook. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm Sam Hayes of One Stop Transaction Services. This is Why with One Stop. And my longtime friend and other industry knowledge expert, Chuck Piro, is here to talk to us about Fire Fortress and home hardening and what we need to know about all these new options on the RPA. So, Chuck, if you want to take it away.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Morning, everybody. Thanks for taking some time. We won't take a lot of time on this, but just a couple of things I want to preface with this report. Sam would know I'm very opinionated about what goes on in this industry I've been a part of for 25 years. This industry is not regulated, as you guys know. And when this report came out a few months ago, Fortress Fire came to Fidelity first to have us distribute this. And our attorneys looked at it and had issues about liability. And because we are a Fortune 500 company, they really look at this stuff carefully. And they decided to opt out. Now, as chance would have it, every other NHD company, well, not every other one, but the bigger NHD companies jumped on this thing. And I'm sure that these reps are out in the field selling this report pretty hard. But I looked at this report page by page, and that's what I want to kind of alert you to with this report. We are now looking at the report again. The company is in contact with Fortress Fire to make some changes in some of the verbiage in the report so that Fidelity is comfortable enough with the distribution of it. But nonetheless, whether we're on the list to distribute or not, my opinion of this report will not change. And this is the stuff that I look at. And I'll tell you the way that I look at stuff. We represent sellers. That's what the NHD industry does. It represents sellers. And I always look at these reports with, does this benefit the seller? And when I look at this, I'll let you draw your conclusion if you think this benefits the seller. I've had a lot of discussions with agents and brokers when it comes to this report. And what I feel is that agents and brokers now are shying away from this report for obvious reasons, okay? So number one is that CAR highly recommends this report. It is not mandatory. Let's make sure that everybody understands this is not a mandatory report. For it to be mandatory, it has to go through a legislative process. It's not done that. Number two, CAR invested in this report. So obviously, they want to push it. To me, that in itself, it raises a lot of questions to me. Why is CAR investing in something that sellers would have to purchase? That would mean to me that CAR is profiting from the sale of this report. They certainly don't profit off the sale of a disclosure source report, nor any other NHD report for that matter. The only way we have to pay is to get on the drop-down menu. They make you pay, like my NHD is at the top of the drop-down when it comes to selecting NHD companies, because they paid the most to be there. And my NHD is only 3 characters. You're given more characters, so they get to add marketing lines on there.
Well,
excuse me,
as we know,
against as well.
And as we know, that is with an unregulated industry and an opportunity to make funds right now, everybody's looking for things. So definitely respect that. But I wanted to real quick jump in on, I was watching the new forums class yesterday with CAR, and it was very interesting that they made it very clear by the lawyers that 3Q2 is an option, and specifically that it does not satisfy the FHDS requirements that are part of civil code.
Right. Okay, so this is a presentation. Look, I try to have fun in my presentations. I have tried to have fun in my I like to laugh and have fun. So I produced this for my group of Southern California salespeople. So you'll see some of my humor pop up in this report. So here's, and then right out of the gate, when I saw this report, well, it's a pretty flashy, nice looking report. Let's just put it that way. It's a pretty nice looking report, but let's read it. Okay. So first of all, this little line down here, nothing herein shall be construed as providing certainty that a property will survive a wildfire. Obviously, I don't care what steps you take. You could cut down every tree on your property, and it wouldn't mean that your house would survive a wildfire. So moving on. First page here are warranty and disclaimer. So that's where I stopped, because I've told everybody, like on an NHD report, what are the most important pages? It's the terms and conditions pages. That tells you what the company will do in the event that they have, that they get sued. What's going to happen to you? So I look at this. So here's the first one. Fortress Fire makes no warranty as to the accuracy of any information contained in this report. Number two, be advised that all assessments in the wildfire risk reports are confined to areas visible with satellite imagery. Yes, this report is based on a satellite image. There is no guarantee that the satellite imagery will be current or accurately reflect all the structures or vegetation on the property that may exist or are blocked from satellite view on the day of the assessment. Fortress Fire cannot be responsible for risks arising from structures or vegetation that are not visible from the satellite imagery, including without limitation any changes that occur after the date on which the satellite imagery was taken. So we don't know when the satellite image was taken, and I would suggest perhaps after the satellite image was taken, the homeowner took steps to reduce vegetation to get in compliance with defensible space. They don't know, because we don't know the difference between the date of the image and the date that they produced the report. Okay, that in itself to me is weird.
That
okay?
was a question I was going to ask you, because that was something I was wondering, is how do you know when are they getting these photos?
Exactly. Okay, now here's their limitation of liability. Fortress Fire should not be liable to you. Now, this is a kind of a standard kind of a disclaimer, because NHD companies have the same type of disclaimer. Not liable to you for indirect, incidental, remote, punitive, exemplary, speculative, consequential, or similar damages, including without limitation, loss of revenues or loss of profits. Well, now what that means, in my view, like a consequential damage, if you order an NHD report, and darn it, that report's in a flood zone, it's in a fire zone, it's in an earthquake zone, it's encumbered with Mello-Roos, it's got all these things going on with the report, and the buyer looks at that and goes, well, shit, this property isn't worth $1 million. It's in all of these zones. That's called a consequential situation, and no NHD company can be responsible for any drop in revenue because of what's on the report. This goes on to say, in no event shall Fortress Fire's aggregate liability exceed the amount paid to Fortress Fire for the disclosure report. By the way, consequential, I just talked about that. There you go. The report costs $140. So I guess that's what they're saying is they're not going to give you more than $140 if there's a lawsuit posed against this company. Now, as you open up the report, these are some of the things that you're going to see. You see that middle picture with all the circles around the trees and all this stuff. So first thing up here is a fire rating and subject to AB38. Well, then you get the same information in a disclosure report. I said a DS report because I'm talking to my people, but to your group, any disclosure, any reputable disclosure report, it's going to give you the same information. The property is in a high or a very high fire hazard severity zone, that means AB38 applies. Okay. These compliant mitigations, are they going to tell you here that, hey, you know what, based on what we see, this is what we need to do. You know, there's 13 total trees in zone 1 which need at least one requiring trimming. And so they're letting you know everything that you need to do here. Then they say, oh, by the way, these compliant mitigations are estimated to start between $1,700 and $5,600. Okay. And then down here, these vulnerability reduction mitigations are estimated to range from $1,200 to $4,200. So right away, they're introducing costs for the seller to get in compliance with get in compliance with defensible space. That's what we're talking about here, is defensible space. Now, I'm looking at this right away and I'm going, you know, if I'm a seller and my agent orders this report for me, I don't think I'm going to be very happy with my agent that's introducing a document that introduces monetary estimates for me to get shit done on my property. Sorry, I will be colorful in my language.
It's okay. I'm colorful too.
Okay, so here we go here. Wildfire ratings found in a DS report. They give you the same ratings that, like I said before, redundant. Now, if you want the fire department to come out and do an inspection, this is the same link that you would find in a disclosure source report. Okay. Now, here we go with the details. And again, look at how detailed this is. Basically, obviously, they took this picture on a clear day. And so you can see everything, not guaranteed, obviously. Then you get this broken down image of the parcel, the structures on the parcel, and the trees. Now, they give you this fire rating, again, very high, same thing you would find on a disclosure report. Let me go back. This USDA rating is not something that's mandatory, okay? And this CPUC rating, not required. They're introducing elements that are not required for the seller to have to disclose, okay? Then we get into more of these beautiful colored pictures, and I'm just going to skim through here because this is what you're getting. Now, we get into this wildfire vulnerability and ignition risk summary. What in the hell does that mean? Okay, and they give you all of this other stuff on here. Convective heat, 41 out of 100. Radiant heat. I mean, what does this stuff mean? I don't think, certainly sellers don't know what this means. And I guarantee you, real estate agents don't know anything about this stuff. Okay, so when you start getting this stuff introduced in the report, convective heat failure analysis. It's like, what the hell does that mean? How about this one? Radiant heat failure analysis. That's another one. It's like, what does that mean? Who can answer that question? How about radiant heat failure analysis? That's the continue from the slide before. Ember entry surplus analysis. Now, I'm thinking ember entry would have to do with the structure, and this has to do more with when the structure was built, because this, I think, would go to home hardening, and houses built after 2010, this wouldn't apply. But nonetheless, they're going to put this in this report, ember heat surplus analysis. Again, what the hell does that mean? Ember accumulation analysis, another one that it's just like, oh my God, all of these phrases that they're putting in here. How about this one? Critical structure to structure failure analysis. Wow. Another just term after term vulnerability mitigation summary. You get the point. Okay. A lot of stuff in here that I know people in our industry are going to be calling you, they're going to be calling me, they're going to be called, what the hell does this mean? You know what? And nobody from Fortress Fire, nobody from CAR ever came to us to train us on this report. Yet, the only way you can get this report is through an NHD company. Chuck Piro, homeowner Chuck Piro, I can't call Fortress Fire independently and say, hey, I want to order one of your reports. They're going to say, if you want a report, you got to go through an NHD company. That, to me, raises red flags. Why can't you order one without going through a company that's now profiting off of this report? So here's the big coup de grace for me. Mitigation and protection plan estimate. So compliance, they give you some numbers. It goes up to 15 grand. Vulnerability mitigation services up to $9,800. And wildfire protection plans about $1,200.
So Chuck,
you're looking at an estimate between $8,400 and $26,000 to get in compliance with what Fortress Fire thinks you need to do to get in compliance with defensible space.
So Chuck, one of my concerns, and this got brought up in one of the TC groups, is somebody had one of these reports and they were out a little bit more rural than other spaces, and it ended up at $50,000.
Yes,
is what they were estimating.
Absolutely. So let me stop that share.
The questions I saw, because I was listening, I'm trying to educate myself to be aware, to let our clients know. Supposedly they fixed it so it's not an automatic drop down in the RPA. It is sitting there. If agents don't know, they think they're protecting their client as on the buyer side writing the offer. We're getting this report that I had red flags, same as you, as soon as I heard that CAR had partnered with this, and especially with it instantly just appearing in the RPA. There was no training on our side really either for TCs, agents, anybody else. Like, what is this for? And then when I was taking my class yesterday about all the updated forms, when they were so vehement, and it wasn't my buddy Neil, because we all know how I love my buddy Neil, but it was their in-house lawyers clarifying this does not meet the fire, home, hardening, and dispensable space civil code requirements. So this, to me, and I know everybody's hurting, and I know this is going to be an interesting year we've got coming out of this one. I have concerns about, one, this feels like it's just a way to make money. Two, I think it's going to add a lot of drama to people that are already feeling snugly with rates and home prices and everything else. And three, how do you know they even have the right parcel map? Because as we know, with title insurance, I mean, I think there was a neighborhood, what was it, Mira Mesa or somewhere, once upon a time, everything was like 2 feet to the right. So what if it's not even the right thing? And then you're cutting down the tree that you don't own. I got a lot of questions.
Well, and so do I. That's a good point, Sam. I had a discussion with an agent the other day that lives in Ventura County. And in Ventura County, real close to Thousand Oaks, and just FYI, Thousand Oaks is because the place is full of oak trees. And if you live on a property with oak trees, you cannot trim an oak tree without calling out an arborist for an arborist to tell you exactly what limbs you can or cannot trim. And there are trees in those areas that you are forbidden to trim. So this report doesn't factor in the cost of an arborist coming out to your house and doing this. You know what? We all have concerns about this thing being a kind of like I said, every broker I've spoken to always says, man, I've got my concerns about this. And I talked to some heavyweights in the industry, and that's the way they feel about it. So, like you mentioned, the president of our company, when he's talking to these guys, he said as well, he saw reports with estimates in excess of $50,000. Now, with that said, let's look at AB38 as opposed to this, okay? The beauty about AB38 is that down in section 3, when you start checking off the options, the wonderful thing about the options is, and I would recommend, and I can get into that if you want, but I always recommend to the people I speak to through Zoom, 3A is the property subject to local ordinance? The right safe answer is yes. Yes, every property is subject to defensible space ordinances. Okay, not point of sale ordinances. Like, you don't have to get this thing certified before you sell the house. The form goes on to allow the buyer and the seller to agree that the seller will take care of this stuff within 1 year after the close of escrow. Okay, and that can become a negotiable item. But why would a seller say, give me this report that gives me a $50,000, $25,000, or whatever the hell it is, estimate, when I can push this off to the seller and let him have a year in which to do this?
You mean the buyer?
By the way, what's important to also understand is that these fire zones that we're talking about, these very high fire severity zones that people have lived in for a number of years, and now they're going to sell their property, they've always been responsible for defensible space. So this isn't anything new to them. They've always had to trim down their trees. Now, whether the fire department comes out there and cites them, or they're just good citizens and they follow what they're supposed to be doing, it is nonetheless not a surprise to them that they have to comply with defensible space. So basically, through the FHDS, through the FDHS, they are allowed for the buyer and seller to come to an agreement, basically saying, hey, by the way, I'm the seller. I've had to do this since I've lived here. I'm passing the baton to you, just so that you know, when we live in these zones, this is the stuff that we have to do.
Right.
Okay. There you go.
Well, and I think it's something that behooves, as we talked before on when we've been talking the FHDS, that a buyer's agent needs to just be aware. I mean, if you're looking at a property when you're taking the client there, that's something to be negotiating, because a lot of times it does get just kind of assumed that the buyer's going to take it over. But with what all's been going on in our industry and transparency, it's a good topic to broach when you walk through. Hey, there's overhanging trees here. Oh, you're on a canyon, because it also impacts insurance with the new. I know there's a revision to the FHDS coming out, or update to that law. We have the insurance new disclosure that's coming out in December as well. And at this point, I know there's going to be even more coming once things get settled in the industry as a whole, with the buyer broker and everything else. With that, this is all coming into, again, that transparency, educated, professional. How do you present it to your client?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Like I said, you know, the thing that the fact that these guys never came to us and said, oh, by the way, let's train you guys on what this report is all about. This was just simply Chuck Piro doing research and going, hey, wait, time out. You know, and when I presented this to my Southern California group, we have a new CEO at Disclosure Source, and I didn't know what his opinion was. And I got up there and I said, hey, I want to talk about the Fortress Fire Report. The guy was nervous that I was going to try to pitch this report.
Oh.
And when I said, hey, look, to me, this is all about education. Let people know, if you're going to buy this, know what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Because once that's in the seller's hands, I think that becomes a material fact that will now have to be introduced in the next transaction and the next transaction, etc. So just this is the value of education. Be aware of what you're doing. And for CAR, I'll say it again, for CAR to come out and highly recommend it, but it's not mandatory. FHDS is mandatory when properties are in fire zones. This report is not. And go look at the Fortress Fire website and go up to the tab where it says, who are we? Hey, these are insurance people and fire people. That's who's doing this. Look, I just got dropped. My homeowner's insurance just dropped me. 23 years in this house, never have filed a claim. I'm not near a fire zone. I'm not near any hazard zone, and I got dropped. And my new insurer, twice as much money as my old insurer for homeowners insurance.
Well, and I know
So,
the industry because of what's going on, and I know that CAL FIRE and the Department of Insurance have been working together, and I know Sierra is involved with that as well. We had a question about whoever created Fortress Fire Report, are they considered an authorized defensible space inspector? Is there such a thing as an authorized defensible space inspector?
well, I would the authorized defensible space inspectors are people from the fire department, fire marshals, etc.
Okay.
I do know that they were overwhelmed when this law came out a couple of years ago because now everybody was requesting defensible space inspections.
Oh,
and they didn't have the personnel to do that. So they went to outside agencies, and I don't know if they certified these people, but those outside agencies can provide you with a certified report. To your question, I would guess yes, but I don't know.
I talked directly to both San Diego and CAL FIRE when this started rolling, and they were not even staffed. They didn't even know, and the timing, because it was right after COVID and everything else that had happened, that just they had been doing even before that. They were supposed to go check the properties, I believe, every 3 years, and that really hadn't been something that kept up. So now that we have the updated maps, because we were working off the pre-2007 maps after the two big fires here in San Diego alone, everywhere else, and then what happened the past few years, I understand why from a business perspective, but I'm concerned about the possible liability that we have if we as TCs or if we as agents just go, oh yeah, check, let's do this. And if listing agents aren't being aware of what this is and not countering it out, what exposure they're doing for their clients and potential liability.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I try to be vague in my presentation about how to fill out the FHDS. I mean, I go through the page in every paragraph. Like, paragraph 1 is when does it apply on defensible space? When does it apply for home hardening? Home hardening only applies to houses built before 2010. Defensible space doesn't matter when the house was built. If it's in a fire zone, you got to fill it out.
Right.
The questionnaire on there, I mean, there's a statutory notice on there. That really applies to houses built before 2010. The questionnaire is really something that is filled out. It's like the TDS. It's filled out by the seller. It's, are you aware of the following that may make your home vulnerable to wildfires and flying embers? They just answer that to the best of their ability. Nobody's policing that. Nobody's going to come and check it off and go out to the house and check it. A lot of these people don't know what the hell they're doing. Check off it's the best of your ability. It's not a fix-it ticket. It's just this is my house vulnerabilities. Then when it gets down to 3, the first question is it subject to local vegetation management ordinance? It is. There's no places that aren't subject to local vegetation management ordinances. Talk to any fire official in San Diego County. Yeah, you got to keep the brush away from the house.
That's just a standard. Yeah.
That's just a standard thing. And then, are you the seller aware if the property is in compliance? Well, hell, these people don't know. And so they're going to probably say, no, I don't know if it's in compliance. And then the next question is, go to the defaults. You don't go to anything else and I've done my research on this by talking to A, Gov Hutchinson, and B, going to the CAR website and just looking at the documents available. The best answers in practice are just using the defaults. Don't check any of those boxes.
Well, and always verify with the broker of record on the file you're working on for that specific situation, just to make sure it's real estate. There's always some adventure tied to it. So
exactly. So that's what I have for you today. I mean, if you look at Sam, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to some of your people. I love the job that you guys do. I know a lot of people come to you for advice, and this, I've been in this industry for 25 years. I've known Sam for a lot of that time.
Yeah.
I'm always about education. And I'm not pushing disclosure source, although I will tell you, this industry, because it's non-regulated, let's say let's just use a number, 25 NHD companies. There might be more, might be less, I don't know. There's only 2 companies in this industry that are part of a Fortune 500 company. All these other people in here, all of these people in here purchase data from data providers. They get that information, they put it on their template, and then they send it out to their clients. They don't have professionals in their buildings looking at those maps and making those determinations. It's some outside agency that's doing that. They have nothing to do with the report. Then when you go look at the terms and conditions, you see something like, quote, the recipients and each of them expressly waive the benefits of California Civil Code 2778. Now, that's really an obscure sentence that people don't read the terms and conditions. Who reads those things? Attorneys and engineers. And those are the ones that call their agents on a Sunday going, what does this mean? But they don't read that stuff. I do. And if they do read it, they go, oh, that doesn't apply to me. That company's telling you you're waiving the benefit of a California Civil Code. A, why would anybody waive a benefit? Nobody would waive a benefit. And B, what benefit are you waiving? Hey, you're waiving the benefit of that company defending you in court. Okay? That's a huge freaking disclaimer that leaves you in the courtroom, leaves the agent and the seller in the courtroom. An NHD company walks out. Didn't you read the fact that you waive the benefit of me defending you? That's the consequence of non-regulation. And I'm telling you, agents don't frickin' care because they're in bed with these guys and they make money. Well, there you go.
And it does happen. And that's one of the things you taught me years ago and why I've been a fan of Disclosure Source. Plus, I can always get a hold of you when we've had questions or anything's come down, because the whole point of the NHD is to take that civil code responsibility of providing the maps, providing everything that the seller is not going to know what to go down to the county and get. Right. So you want to have that protection in place. Again, though, all of these are always referred to the broker of record to make sure that they're advising how they want their file maintained and what they want to move forward with. So a devil's advocate question that came up from Shiloh was, what if the agent on the buy side would suggested that in that role, would the buyer's agent want to write this in to protect their client? And
good question.
Yeah, my gut goes to, and I'm interested to hear what you say. My gut goes to, till this gets sorted out a little bit more and there's a little bit more fact or measurement based, I feel like this is a frivolous report right now, or please somebody redirect me to where this information can be more authentic or verified, I should say, because who knows where these prices are coming from that they're ballparking? Who knows if you verified the property lines? Who knows if you're compliant? When was that photo taken? I mean, there's so many what ifs.
Yeah, and Sam, you just hit every single one of those things, right? Who knows? Buyers cannot request inspections on properties that they are potentially buying. The only one that can order an inspection is going to be the seller. Okay, so right. When we send out our reports, there's that link to go to an agency to get an inspection. And the point of our buyers going to order this report, good point. I don't know, because the buyer, in order to buy it, is going to have to go to an NHD company. And I'm sure the NHD company is going to say, yeah, we'll issue the report. We'll also issue an NHD report. So you're going to get slammed with both. You're going to get, a $99 report, $140 report. That really, that's the seller's responsibility, not the buyer. So I don't know.
Well, it's going to be, will the buyer's agent request it on the contract, because the way it's set up now, where it kind of is just there. And so it's making sure that we've got, one, all agents understanding what is this report, what does it provide, what is it going to do, and two, understanding from their broker how they best want to either, say, no, we're not going to provide this, and make sure you're countering it out, or a buyer's agent, yes, we're going to push it forward and go from there. So
yeah. Hey, to me, that's a recipe for a that deal's not going to go anywhere. And I would think there's going to be a lot of deals that are going to be dropped. Now they're going to drop offers because sellers aren't going to agree to put 30 grand into fixing their house. That's a lot of money. And in this market, are you kidding me? This is look, I don't want to get too carried away.
No. And I understand. And I also agree with you. To me, that would be considered material fact, because that's now known information. But how do we verify the material fact? But at the same token, you didn't provide it, and then suddenly this buyer's stuck with this huge amount and finds out that you'd ordered the report.
Yeah.
We got an opportunity. It's such a gray area that I do have concerns. And I do think, again, I'm going to keep saying it, verify with the broker of record on the file you're working on to make sure that everybody's aware of the potential exposure here for all parties.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, as always, I always love talking with you, and you and I both are just as vehemently passionate about our aspects of the industry.
Yeah. Yep.
So I will go ahead and share on my Facebook page and in the chat, your email, or do you want your email, or do you want just go to disclosure source?
No, put my
Okay.
email on there because it'll go
Perfect.
right to me. Okay.
So that way you can chat up, because I know you've always been a great resource for me, and I appreciate you bringing some clarity to this. You're getting lots of thank yous in the chat, which I know you can see too on the Zoom. Let's circle back once the new year starts and I learn a little bit more about laws, and if anything else changes, we can touch base and have you back to talk about any updates.
Okay. Hey,
Okay.
let me just put
Put your email in there.
yeah.
Awesome. It's cpiro@cox.net.
Yeah, cdpiro@cox.net.
cdpiro@cox.net.
Okay, look, I have an FNF account. Check this out, everybody. About 2.5 weeks ago, FNF got breached.
Yeah.
Nationwide got breached. And I mean, we do business in all 50 states. It affected title, it affected escrow, it affected closings of properties. All of our email was down for a couple of weeks. Our reps were flipping out. Of course, they're flipping out. And I take the position of, hey, flip out all you want. You're not going to change anything. Okay?
How do we fix it?
Yeah. Let them fix it. Be glad you're not the dude that has to fix this mess. Okay. And sit back and relax. And one day you're going to be saying, remember back in December when all the email went down and everybody was flipping out? So I always use my personal email address. So if you need me, and I didn't read all of these questions here.
I think I got them all
we
when we were
answered them,
talking.
but contact me directly and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Sam, thank you. Shiloh, Nanette, Emily, Adriana, Claudia, thanks for joining here this morning. And Sam, anytime, honey.
I appreciate it. It's awesome to see you, and we'll talk soon. Happy holidays.
See you too, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.